Hello and welcome to episode 2 of LPM Tiger Team with Access Legal, a series of problem-solving webcasts that look to address critical challenges facing the SME legal market today. Inspired by a high-intensity problem-solving approach taken by NASA during the height of the Apollo 13 crisis, Tiger Team looks to take a do-or-die approach to solving problems that stop SME legal firms from reaching their full potential in today's market. Episode 1 was about client centricity in law firms, how to move away from a kind of billable hours mindset towards a more customer success mindset. And today we're going to be talking about talent attraction and retention, specifically about what blocks law firms from attracting the best talent and engaging a workforce that is particularly restless at this moment in time. We'll be addressing one or two key problem areas within this space, but we do welcome questions from our audience. So do use the Q&A function in Zoom to post any questions that you may have, and we'll try to come around to as many of you as possible. My name is Aftab Bose. I'm the editor for LPM, and I'm joined today by a panel of decision makers from the SME legal space and a legal tech expert from Access Legal, all with a diverse set of expertise, but all relevant to the topic we're going to be talking about today. Bishu Solomon Kurma is the head of customer success at Access Legal, where she manages a portfolio of more than 3,500 legal customers. She also oversees the firm's professional services, support, and customer success teams. She has a background in law, but has also been working in the legal tech solutions side since 2014 with big names such as Deloitte and Epic under her belt. We'll be hearing a short introduction from Bishu in just a moment. Claire Atkins is the head of people services at Sintons, a full service law firm with a headcount of over 200 based in the northeast of England with clients spread across the UK and beyond. Claire has over 30 years of experience in HR, much of which came at John Lewis, and she's been in the legal sector since 2013. Nicolas Mason is HR and Operations Director for Naptons, a 150 plus strong law firm based in Preston that delivers legal services across the Northwest. Nicolas has more than 15 years of experience in HR and has spent the last 6 years at Naptons and now manages the firm's people agenda across HR, onboarding, facilities, and a range of other functionalities. Sarah Charlton is the CEO of Eaton Evans and Morris, a legal services firm based in Wales with a headcount of roughly 25 to 30 employees. Sarah has been in the legal sector for over 3 decades, occupying roles ranging from COFA to CEO. And she's also the co-founder of legal finance solutions firm Blue Sky Legal. And last but not least, we have with us Tim Cogan, who is the managing director of Tinsdale Solicitors, a Hanley-based firm with over 90 headcount and offices across the country. Tim has been at Tinsdale's for over 35 years and oversees the firm's HR function alongside many other functionalities, including that of Gulp. Thank you very much for joining us today for this discussion. Before we go into the problem-solving session, can I just hand over to Bishu for a short introduction?
Thank you so much, Aftab. I'm very happy to be here today representing Access Legal and the wider Access Group as a whole. We're really pleased to be sponsoring this discussion today. Our business objective is to ensure that our software offers a solution that helps customers address their business challenges, whatever they may be. After speaking with many legal customers over recent months and working alongside the experts on this panel to prepare for the session, I've really come to appreciate that one of the biggest challenges facing law firms at the moment is talent management. Attracting, retaining, engaging talent, whether solicitors, paralegals, or business support professionals, requires conscious effort and dedication, and sometimes even the right technology to enable success. But it starts with understanding the root causes of the challenges that law firms are facing. So our goal here, through this discussion with Claire, Nicolas, Sarah, and Tim, is to share real-life practical solutions that can help small and medium-sized law firms manage their talent and build thriving teams. So with that, I'll hand it back to Aftab to kick off the discussion.
All right, thank you very much for that, Bishu. As you said, we'll be hoping to solve some critical challenges. And one of the problems that has come out from these discussions that we've been having with the SME legal market is that we get straight to it. The pandemic has kind of changed priorities in the workforce. So material incentives have kind of gone out of favor, and some people favor more work-life balance, others want more flexibility, others want to work at an organization that is more purpose-driven or has a good sustainability profile. Others still want to work at a nice culture, at a people first culture. And then there are still those who are very much driven by the material incentives, the yacht and the mansion, as we've discussed previously. And so I think the challenge facing SME law firms is that there's such a diverse range, and it changes from one person to the next. And it also changes from one day to the next. So the challenge facing SME law firms is to stay on top of these kind of changing expectations. So if I could just start with you, Claire, and just if you could just set the scene of what are the biggest stumbling blocks, and how have you at Sintons been managing this wide array?
I think you're right, and I think I always say that you can't please all of the people all of the time, but I think in terms of the functions that we have on this today, it's about trying to keep as many people happy for most of the time that we can. There's so many things that we can do around this. We've talked about hybrid working, and it's quite interesting because everybody wants different things because they've got different priorities in their lives, as you've mentioned. And I think it's about helping people. And what we try to do here is explain to people why you might need them in the office part of the time, but have the flexibility to work from home, not just about this is the guidelines. And I think if people understand why something's being put in place, they're more likely to be on board with it. But having said that, there are still outliers there who want something different, and I think it's about having some flexibility with the approach that you have as well, because everybody is different. So we've tried to put in place guidelines around things like flexible working, because you're right, people's priorities have changed, and the vast majority of people have realised you can have a better work-life balance being working from home, but to understand that there is value in coming into the workplace as well. And one of the big projects we're dealing with at the moment is questioning how do we make our offices and workplace a destination where people want to come to. And that's quite hard if you've got some people who aren't coming in or not very often, and then others who want to come in more often. It's how do you still make it a collaborative workplace and keep the great culture that we had before everybody went into lockdown and started working in bubbles and things. So it's not easy, and that's why we've got this meeting today, isn't it? Just to thrash through different ideas and things. But that would be my initial things around the hybrid working. And people are looking at firms, and the firms who aren't doing offering any hybrid working at all, know we are getting applications from people because they want of the balance between two and the two of them. So yeah, I think they're definitely restless at the moment.
Yes, it's definitely restless, and clear communication of what you're doing at your firm is definitely something that they respond well to. Nicolas, is there something that you also have been trying at Naptons, or what is the strategy that you employ to kind of manage this restlessness?
Yeah, I think I'd echo what Claire said. Obviously, hybrid working has been a huge thing for us, and I think the pandemic has almost forced that position and brought it to the fore of people's minds, and people have seen how well it can work. So that's definitely here to stay for us. I think the other things that I would say that have been quite clear for us is the quality of the clients that people can work with, and really making clear how much of an impact our people can have with their clients, and giving them, really good client experience, really, and the good client feedback, because I think that all feeds very nicely back into a purpose as to why you come to work every day. We've also worked really hard on our career framework and demonstrating how the work that you're doing can help really progress your career. And we've also recognised that for everybody that isn't necessarily climbing a ladder, sometimes it's about broadening out your experience, or getting under the skin a little bit more about the runnings of a law firm, for example. So I think those two things have started to help us in terms of demonstrating a compelling reason why to come and work for Napthans, and more importantly, why to stay at Napthans. And we've got a full program going on, but I would say that those things really are key for us. Treating people as individuals. We've recently launched our Big Dream Club, because we want to demonstrate to people that we want to support people in whatever it is that they want to achieve in their lives. And I think that just feeds through into the culture of our firm, and who we are and what we're about, and demonstrating again that it's a good place to be.
It's a real demonstration of your purpose, of what their purpose within the organization is as well. Sarah, if I could just come to you, tying this back to kind of the talent and attraction and retention pieces, how does this help manage restlessness? How do some of these strategies, and what have you been doing?
So the geographic boundaries with the lockdown and hybrid working has obviously opened the gates a little bit. Career progression, I would echo. That's probably something that puts off a lot of professionals of going to a small law firm. And I think the law firm Eaton Evans Morris is the smallest out of everyone on the panel. So that's even harder because we don't necessarily have that structure. But some of the things that we've been doing to try and overcome the fact that as the larger law firms are able to introduce hybrid working and potentially attract candidates that currently work with us, we are trying to instill the value that each person has rather than the job title. We've also broken down our organisation chart into more layers, so people feel that they do get more promotions. There is a very traditional model where you're sort of a solicitor, associate solicitor, and then you go to become a partner. So we've tried to break things down. So say in the property department, we have a head of residential, then we have a head of property. So that's gives them that sense of feeling that every now and then they're moving up, where the traditional model, there's quite large leaps and there might be 7, 8, 9 years between each leap. So you don't necessarily feel that you're actually making progress. So being able to change our organisation chart and make sure everyone feels valued no matter what the job title is. And then also introducing some sort of technical areas. What we have found is just because somebody's very, 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 good at a particular area of law doesn't necessarily mean that they actually want to head their own department, because they don't necessarily have the people skills to head a department. So making sure that they are known as the technical person for wills and LPAs, or technical person for high value estates, and giving them that title, that status, and again, that recognition, because you can break your organisation chart. I feel that that's probably what's helped safeguard a lot of our staff into the future, as the larger law firms can offer hybrid working and can offer a lot of the corporate social responsibility and all of the other nice trimmings that normally people would gravitate towards in a small law firm because it's a small law firm. Larger law firms are obviously catching up on that, I would say.
Exactly. So there are strategies in place, but there's always stumbling blocks, and there's always this competition, this constant threat from large law, especially when it comes to incentivizing staff. So, Tim, if I could just come to you in terms of managing this constant threat, this competition, these wars that are going on. If you could just give us some initial context on how Tin Stills has fared amid this wage war.
Yeah, the one thing that obviously has happened over the last 18 months is that people's working, not only the working environment, but working processes have changed as well. And one thing that it's important to recognise is that people, or most people, don't like change. There's a curve of change. We're all creatures of habit. So one of the things we've been working on is trying to smooth those changes to make it easier for people to adapt. And I think in a smaller firm, you have the ability to do that more, because you can offer people more choices. Obviously, anything that has to work for the firm, but if you actually go and speak to people, find out what's most important for them, what works best for them, and see if you can have in place procedures and policies that will actually fit in with what they want. Again, as a smaller firm, you can actually do that more easily. You don't have to survey people. You can actually go up and talk to them. And I think that's one of the things that people do appreciate, is more and more contact. When people are spread around the place, some working in the office, some not working in the office, some working fully from home, internal communications becomes so much more important, as it's been said before, in relation to what you're doing and also why you're doing it, and why it's got to work for everybody. In addition, you've got to try and make sure your staff have a sense of belonging, that they belong to the organisation, that they're a valued part of that. and looking at your appraisals or your performance review programs and making sure that those are properly followed through. Because I know that in a lot of firms, including ours, those sort of things tended to go a little bit more on the back burner over the last 18 months because we've got a lot of other things that we needed to concentrate on. And also trying to be inventive about things that will make people engage more socially. For example, I know it's a small thing, but for example, we haven't been able to have as many social events for the staff there. You know, it's just not been possible. COVID restrictions and also, you know, common sense. You don't want all your stuff in one place at one time. It's not sensible. So doing different things. So just an example of something that's coming up. We're not going to be able to have a Christmas party for our staff again this year. We did actually offer them that as an option, but they said, no, thank you. We'd rather not. So what we've done instead is we've actually introduced a staff advent calendar. So we're giving staff presents every day during December and making sure that everybody at least feels that they are able to contribute and sort of stay in the Christmas spirit. Final thing really is making sure that they can collaborate within the office, without the office, giving them those opportunities to make sure that they're still bonded to their teams and making sure that the team leaders at the same time make sure that their staff know how valued they are to that particular team and that particular function.
Right, so making them feel heard, making them feel engaged, really understanding the work was important. And if I could come to you, Vishu, because there's a role for technology to play in all this, even throughout the spectrum of law. So could you give us an insight on what that is, what that role is?
Yeah, so over the last 18, 20 months, however long it's been since the pandemic really began, what we've noticed is an uptick in the demand for technology to enable our law firm customers to be able to work flexibly. Initially, it was working from home, but now it's ensuring that we can really work flexibly because we do understand that some folks are working in the office a few days a week and some folks are working from home potentially permanently. So keeping those folks together and connected, the role that technology can play, and that's really important. And having systems that allow people to communicate really easily, whether that's via chats or other engaging types of platforms. It's just having it all in one place. There's also a security aspect of that, but I won't go into that for this particular purpose. The focus is on people, but it has to be top of mind for some of the senior leaders in the firms, right? As they're focusing on, are people able to do their work, and are they able to do their work in an environment that keeps them happy and satisfied and they feel like they're thriving. So enabling that kind of connectivity is really important, and making sure that you have the right controls and processes and procedures in place. The communication piece, being able to communicate widely and easily to your team using that technology is really important. But what I actually wanted to focus on for the purpose of this conversation is what's available to our law firm customers around growth and development and tracking talent progression from a technology perspective, because perhaps that's one area where we don't think of it as being traditionally a solution that you bring on board. And it may be because of cost prohibitive factors potentially, but I think it could be surprising to some how easy it can be to implement systems that allow you to map out what career paths could look like and then track them through a system. So there's that transparency and accountability, both from the senior members of the firm and the individuals who are looking to grow their careers. They can actually see step by step, what are they learning? How are they adding value? Receive feedback kind of directly through that system. But just a few of those ideas that are out there and that people are starting to think about and bring on board. And I think why that's particularly important for small and medium-sized firms is because they don't necessarily have the scale and a significant HR department potentially, it often could fall on a senior leader who's got a lot of other things on their plate. So how can we help them in managing their time effectively and bring solutions that mean they don't need to spend 100% of their time thinking of how to create a process that's not their area of expertise. Their expertise is law and practicing the law, right? So looking at whatever's out there to supplement and enhance what you're already doing in your firm.
Right, thanks for that. There's so many strategies here. I mean, the tech brings the transparency, it brings the time saving, there's the communication, there's the purpose. But if we can just use the next few minutes and go around the room again to really get to the bottom of the nitty gritties, because these strategies are obviously implemented, but I wouldn't say that they or I'm sure you wouldn't say either that they work out perfectly in practice. I'm sure there are still quite a few stumbling blocks. So if some of you could just give me an idea of what what it is that still persists or still blocks you, and if there was something more that you wished that you could do. And I think a good way to think about this, what we often do here is if I were to give you a magic wand, the free pass to kind of overcome any obstacle that still comes in the way, what would you do it? And possibly if you could go into a bit of the how, and if I could go back in the same order, Claire, if we could start with you.
I think just talking, the first thing that came into my head there, so I'm going to be completely honest, my magic wand would banish all recruitment agents because I think part of the restless workforce at the moment is the fact that we've got recruitment agents contacting our employees and partners all of the time, because we know that there are more jobs out there than there are candidates for the jobs. And I think one of the things around that in terms of, we're not, obviously the magic wand won't work, it would be my wish, but I think one of the big things is that probably most law firms have vision and values and behaviours. And I think the important thing is that we all live by them every day. And I think the people on this call can influence that within their firms. And it's not always easy when people are busy and, you know, they can forget themselves, but all it takes is for somebody not to follow your firm's values and behaviours, and then the recruitment agent could just be on the phone to one of your people and they could just ring at the wrong time. So I think just picking up on the thing around making people feel valued, I think there is something around people behaving consistently and making sure that they do follow their values and behaviours every day, because it just takes one thing to go wrong. And you can't always influence how clients will talk to lawyers and that can be a challenge as well. But I think if we've got a collaborative workplace where people work well together and they do feel valued and respected, that is really important. So when that recruitment agent does ring, they're not thinking, you know what, I've just been badly treated there, so I'm going to have a conversation with the agent. But that's what my magic wand would do.
Right. And in terms of going back to you, Claire, because in terms of the communication strategies that you talked about, clearly being in touch, is there something that still comes in the way, aside from the recruitment agent's point, something that still that your firm still stumbles on?
I think probably consistent communication and making sure that people who are working remotely feel as involved as they do in the office. And I think that can be a challenge sometimes, because if you've got somebody on a screen and then other people in a meeting room or whatever, it can be quite hard for people to manage that. So I do honestly think that's something that we are still struggling with. It's about making sure that whoever's leading meetings is involving everybody, whether there's a few people in the office and then people online. It's about making them all feel involved. I think that is a challenge in will be going forward.
All right. If I could just come to you, Nicolas, because also there's this whole communication aspect. There's the fact that you have to have a purpose for each person and really communicate to them. Has there still been something that comes in the way of that? And what are you doing to solve that? What would you do? What more would you do to solve that?
Yeah, and I think for us, one of the biggest challenges that we have is a lack of understanding from students coming through the universities and colleges around the different specialisms that exist within law. And I think for us, where we do have specialists within the firm, for them to be able to grow their department effectively, it's quite tough because there's only so many people out there that have these specialisms. And I think that does make it tough, and that can create a blocker for growth. And I think one of the things that I keep pushing the universities, or have kept pushing the universities on, is around folding specialisms much more into their teachings, which doesn't seem to have come about so much. So we are going to launch a specialism school in conjunction with the university next summer to start sharing some of this stuff a lot earlier, because even though it might not necessarily benefit our firm in the short and even medium term, it's got to benefit the industry, because as a whole we struggle, I think, with some of these specialisms.
Right. And so it's the magic wand in your hand. What is it that you would do with unlimited resource to kind of solve that?
I think I would look for universities to enhance their courses that they offer. I think I'd like to be able to, I mean, if I could magic more people, I would love that. But I don't know how magic this magic wand is. But I think really it's about impressing upon the universities the challenges that we face as law firms, and really getting them to understand and help us address these issues really. So for me, it'd be something around courses on specialisms in particular.
Right. And Sarah, coming to your upward mobility point and really making sure that there is a sense of fulfillment in the workplace, is there something that still stops Eaton, Evans and Morris from really fulfilling that potential, and how would you overcome that if you could?
So I think it's really hard to find anyone that's trained, which is echoing probably what a lot of the Tiger team have mentioned. It's very, very hard to attract people that have a specific skill set, and having worked or have some experience within the legal sector, would also say that whilst there are lots of options and avenues with CRC, SILEX, and obviously the SRA in relation to training and qualifying, there are lots of roles growing and emerging outside of those roles, and I think it's really hard to find training and development and mentoring in those areas where perhaps they don't want to go on to be a solicitor. There's a complete void from being a solicitor down, and it would be really, really useful if we could have some members of staff that at the very least have an idea of what contentious, non-contentious is, just basic terminology and ability to translate. And at least they'd be able to hit the road running a little bit more, where we find that we're taking school leavers in, we're taking people that potentially have got a degree. It's not a law degree, it's, their aspirations have been sidetracked for whatever reason. And it takes a long time. That can take 3, 4, 5 years to bring them into a place where, I don't want to sort of say that they're useful because that sounds harsh, but that we're starting to get a return in the investment that we've made, bringing them from literally school into the legal world. So that if I had a magic wand, it would definitely be around that.
Right, Tim, at Instills, how is it working out, and what more would you do?
Well, I think it's working out quite well for us. We haven't had a problem, for example, bringing staff back into the office, which I know some firms have done if staff have been out for a long, long time on a full-time basis, because people get used to a new routine. I think the things we can still improve on are things such as internal communications, particularly between, for example, the fee-earning staff and IT, finance, marketing, to make sure that we're all still gelling as a unit, because everything has to go forward, everything has to work together, not just the lawyers, but all the other parts that make the firm work need to be there as well. I also think, as Sarah's mentioned, training's an issue as well. I think a lot of us, I have to say, have taken our eyes a little bit off the ball on training again, and training people in groups, departments, not as easy as it used to be. You can't do it in person, you can't interact. So you've got half your people on a Zoom or a Teams meeting, half in people in the office. That is very, very difficult. And those are things we've got to continue to work on. If I was given a magic wand and it was very, very magic, I would want it to eradicate COVID, because I think you'll have a lot less restless work stuff if you know that there's less chance of you and your family getting ill, there's less chance of you being locked down, and actually next year you might be able to go on holiday somewhere you want to go when you want to go. I think that would make people a lot less restless.
I'm sure we would all appreciate that, Tim. It would be the dream. But I think if I could just go back to something you said earlier, because there is a problem with training, onboarding, making people fulfilled, especially in this kind of hybrid scenario. So if you could just give me a little more about what would you do, where you said that there's a lot of work to be done there in training and getting people gelling in a virtual world, but what would you do? What is the solution there? If we can start that process?
I've got to say that I don't actually know the final answer for that. I think we're still very much learning. what we can do and what we can't do. One thing we have got now is we've got a lot more facilities for online learning than we had before. And we're getting a lot more flexibility as well. We've got a large personal injury department. So, for example, we're members of APL. They are now accepting a lot more online training, whereas before they wanted you to go and attend physical courses. I really do think it's something that I haven't got an instant answer for. I think we just need to see what's available, what people actually need as well, because we've changed all the processes that people don't. You need to change your training to make sure those processes are being properly used. So there's a lot more IT issues and application issues than there were before. Certainly there are in our practice, our size. It may be in a larger firm, they've already got that in place. But I think we all need to think a little bit more outside the box.
Right. Well, speaking of outside the box, Bishu, I mean, you work with so many, with more than 3,500 customers. You work with so many law firms regularly. There's obviously still challenges that people out there are facing. What would you do? How would you help? You've heard so many stumbling blocks now. How would you help?
I think it was Claire who said it at the beginning of this webinar, this session, that there is no one size fits all approach. So in an ideal world, I would just want to be able to sit down with every customer and ask them all the questions that could get to the heart of what are the challenges that you're facing, and then create the solutions around them. The purpose of most technology is to be able to offer as many solutions as possible to a wide net, which is obviously practical in the case. But where I see some challenges sometimes with customers is how they end up adopting that technology and making it fit for purpose within their firm, because it's obviously going to add value to different firms in different ways. And if I could sit down with every customer, and my team could sit down with every customer and really get at what can we do to improve your team's experience, to make your business function better or as best as it can, how can we help, right? And to be able to have those customer conversations is really, really valuable. But before you can even have them, I think the firms have to ask those questions of themselves internally, right? And sometimes it's doing that in partnership, asking together, because you don't know what questions you could be asking if you don't work with a partner who perhaps has that expertise and could shed light on some issues that you wouldn't know how to articulate. That gets back to expertise and purpose. And we understand at the end of the day that the job within a law firm function is to serve their clients ultimately, and all the other things that can happen can perhaps take away from that. So really being a partner and adding benefit and value, and in a magic wand world, that's how it would be. It would be symbiotic and a really great partnership.
Right, thanks for that. We do have a couple of questions from the audience. I think Amina Khan, I think I'm going to pose this one to you, Sarah. It's how do you ensure effective management and leadership at a time like this, and have certain models been implemented? And I'll start with you, but obviously we'd like to hear more about management and leadership models across the panel.
So I think communication is the sort of strand. So if you are a good manager or you're a good leader, then your communication skills should be exceptional. You should have strong emotional intelligence, so you have a sense and you can sort of start to gain a feel for whether your workforce are getting restless, if they're overworked, if they're underworked, if they have any concerns and things like that. But regular communication is key. Not just by the telephone, but when you Zoom members of your staff, then you can read their body language, you can get a whole feel for it. I think the management and leadership qualities should really have been in existence prior to the pandemic. So, if you're trying to catch up during the pandemic and sort of brush up on your management leader skills, you are really against the curveball, I would say.
Right. Is there any, Tim, could you give us a bit about management and leadership strategies, because obviously you've talked a lot about going and really speaking personally to people within the firm and really understanding their problems. Is there a model around this? Is there something that people can implement when they don't necessarily have the time? What would you say is the crux of this?
Well, my own management style is more by managing by walking around, because I think you find out a hell of a lot of things. You can walk around and you can talk to the staff and we say, oh, we don't like the brand of coffee we're getting at the moment, things like that. Those sort of little things, it might sound very trivial, but those sort of things can mean a lot to people. That's probably a bit too trivial, but yeah. Obviously, COVID prevents problems with that because there's geographical issues, being in different offices, etc. But I think it's making sure that also that you've made sure that your team leaders and your department heads have also got their ears to the ground, and they are communicating back to you, because there's no point these points being made to them and them not then passing it on or dealing with it themselves if they can't do that. So it's the communication chain, I think, that's very important as well.
Right. And there's one in here for you, Claire. I think it's because you spoke about the recruitment agencies and how you would eliminate them. But there's a question also from Amina, is how do you predominantly recruit, firstly, and what methods do you use to get inspired people into the firm and know that they'll fit into the culture, and how do you filter out those who wouldn't fit into the culture?
I think from our point of view, we find that particularly lawyers, when we're recruiting, they prefer to go to recruitment agents. I think they just feel there is it will remain more confidential, I think, is the feedback that we get. But obviously that's quite costly, always going to a recruitment agent, particularly for SMEs as well. So I think one of the things is, if you go to a recruitment agent, make sure that you negotiate the best terms that you can, and don't just pay what the recruitment agent initially says to you in the terms and conditions. I think we also use social media, so we use LinkedIn and Twitter. Our marketing team get out there quite a lot with the job adverts and that we have. But I think also promoting the firm in other ways, so it's not just about when you have a job vacancy, it's about thinking about how you get out into the market and get your firm reputation out there anyway. So we do podcasts around different legal areas of the firm and different things on social media. I think there's an important part here as well about making sure that you advertise vacancies that you have internally and thinking about succession planning for people. We can all do that no matter what size firm we are, because there could just be people in the firm that you think, you know what, we could develop their career and help them with skills for roles that are coming up. And I think that ties in as well around having career conversations with people, which doesn't always mean that they are looking at promotion. It's about being the best that they can be in their job. And if we don't understand as firms what people want to get out of their jobs and what their strengths in that are, then it's very difficult to help them with career development around that. So that they're the three main parts that we would use. But there are other areas depending on whether you're looking at diversity and increasing diversity and going to different areas. We were looking for a lawyer to work within our faith-based team a little while ago, and we'd looked into putting the advert into the church newsletters and things. So sometimes it's just about thinking creatively and how you reach out to people. It doesn't always have to be expensive. So it's looking at the different options that are out there. Does that answer the whole question there?
Yeah, there's also the whole cultural fit aspect. How do you filter out those who you know might not fit in culturally?
That's a difficult one. So you can, we do face-to-face interviews or online, whatever, obviously, with at least a couple of people. So we tend to have two people in an interview. You can do personality profiling and all of that stuff, which can weed out people from a cultural point of view, but we don't personally use that, and I'll point to the reasons why here. But it can go wrong, and I think it's just about dealing with performance issues when somebody joins your business and they're not the right fit. But we do get it right most of the time, and I think it's about just the type of questions that you ask people and getting to know the candidates and sharing with them about your firm culture and who your firm is and what the roles are about, because it's a two-way process.
There's another interesting one in here that I'll come back to you on, but before that, I think there's a couple for Nicolas and Bishu. So Nicolas, I'll start with you. Someone, I think it's Georgina Holton, wants to know, you mentioned the Dream Club, and she really wants to know a little bit more about what that is and how that works.
Yeah, sure. This was born off the back of some work that we're doing through our charity foundation, actually, because we're working in conjunction with My Happy Mind, who roll out mental health support programs for primary school children. We want to support them as a result of the pandemic primarily. And it was Laura Earnshaw who founded the My Happy Mind initiative, who was talking to us about big dreams and how actually the most fulfillment you get out of your life is when you've achieved a big dream. And quite often what happens is on your to-do list, you have 101 things to do and you tick them off, but then something else gets added on and you never really get a sense of achievement. Whereas when you go out and run a marathon or learn a language or write a book or whatever your big dream is, actually that's where you feel you're most fulfilled as your own self. So we talked about it internally and thought, well, why don't we come up with a big dream club where we can all get together and talk about what our big dreams are. So we literally launched it last week and it was the most positive hour I think I've had ever. It was just such a brilliant session and we had everyone coming up with all sorts of different things that they want to achieve out of their life. And what we have been able to do then is put people in contact with other people across the firm who we know have done similar things. So we've got someone who is through to the finals of the Ironman competitions, and someone else wants to achieve 10 Ironman running sessions with a view to get into the World Champions, where she's already achieved it. So we've put them two in touch with one another, and someone else is doing some house renovations. We've put them in touch with someone else who's already got a bit of a portfolio going on. So it's really been quite a buoyant journey, really. And it's also built off the back of the coaching and mentoring program that we launched earlier in the year. So it all fits quite nicely together. But, if it sounds of interest, I couldn't encourage you more to do it because it was just absolutely superb.
It does sound superb. And Bishu, there's one very specific one for you here. Are there any employee engagement survey tools that you would recommend for SME law firms? Because obviously they say that there's no one size fits all, and this is also from Georgina Holton. There's no one size fits all, and obviously there's a sea of tech solutions out there. So how do they know where to start, and what is the survey tool, engagement survey tool for?
So this is where understanding the unique needs of the firm gets to be really important. But how I'll answer this question is to suggest that if you're looking at these solutions, ask yourself whether or not they integrate with any HR platform that you already have in place. As many integrated solutions as you can find, the better, because you want that engagement survey tool to connect with your learning management system potentially and your HR system, because it needs to track reporting lines and the action items that come out of engagement surveys. The purpose of them isn't just to understand what are the answers to these questions. It's to, okay, we've asked these questions, we received the answers. How are we driving action and engagement as a result of it, and holding our leaders accountable? Because the purpose of those engagement surveys is to make sure that where you're getting feedback on areas of improvement, you're actually driving that improvement, right? So I would just assess the technology based on how comprehensive it is and how it could potentially integrate with other systems that you're using. And where you don't have those solutions in place and it can offer that complete package, then it could potentially make sense. To the point around proportionality, of course, one of the cost prohibitive factors that SMEs may face is how can we build something out that isn't a significant cost across our firm based on the revenues that we're bringing in. Once you break it down to a per user model, I think that really helps in understanding the proportionality of it. So I would just ask folks to think about how they're assessing the investment that they're making, and then calculate what's the potential return on that investment, right? One of the things that we haven't specified here is the cost of attrition. When you're losing talent, that costs your business money. It costs more to hire someone in, the recruitment fees, the training fees, the expertise that's being lost. Investing in things that may seem like they cost a lot at the outset can help you stem those future costs down the line. So just look at it as an overall investment package and carefully consider what your ROI is. And that hopefully makes the cost a bit less scary overall, because it truly is an investment in the team. So for this call, we're trying to be a bit general and agnostic without specifying. I'm happy to have kind of offline conversations with folks who want to reach out directly. I do welcome that. It's just making sure that we're giving you tools to ask the right questions and consider all the factors that you should be looking into when making a decision.
Thank you for that. Tim, there's another one that I'm going to pose to you, because we did have a chat about diversity earlier. Is that there's education and training opportunities obviously key to attracting a diverse workforce, but what changes can a law firm make so that their workforce is really a reflection, a cross section of society? What changes can they make internally, culturally?
Well, I think this goes down to the subject of people actually choosing you to be their employer rather than you choosing them to be the employees. I think it's simply getting the message out there, isn't it? Social media is really good on things like this. It can show that you celebrate different diverse cultures. You can also use your website as well to make it clear that you have flexible working and HR policies, so people are all welcome to join you. I think people tend to get a feel for that by looking at you and seeing how you interact with them, how you interact with other media sources, etc. I don't think there's any silver bullet on this. I think it's simply making sure that you effectively have a profile in the market as being the sort of firm that is a welcoming firm, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Sarah, could I pose the same question to you for a second? Just what is it that firms can do internally so that they can end up attracting a kind of diverse and cross section of society more?
I think a lot of it is the wording on how you advertise for jobs, how you advertise for recruitment. I went to an innovation conference that the SRA held in Cardiff, and there was actually a lady who has done a huge amount of work on diversity and how to attract new members of staff that come from a diverse background. And the message from her was really clear that you have to wholeheartedly immerse yourself in the desire of wanting to recruit and attract, and the wording really is key on how you word the adverts to show that you're embracing culture, that you're embracing and have an honest desire to be able to make sure your workforce reflects the local community, and that's not just at the bottom levels. That's not just employing a cleaner who's from Europe or being sort of and thinking that that's a sort of token gesture and that ticks my equality and diversity. It's about providing a strong message from the heart that says that you really, really do want to have people from all different backgrounds, and then employ, obviously, hopefully you're going to have, strong candidates that do come from different backgrounds. And then, as people start to see the change of your team's, a team structure, then you'll attract new talent. Our team before I started was very white, very male on the top, white female at the bottom, all sort of heterosexual, very sort of standard. And we've got a lot more diversity now that's actually coming through, and it's largely down to the wording and at the interview, making it really clear that you can be comfortable here, you can be who you want to be here, and it doesn't matter what colour you are, what shape, size, what religion, whatever, you could be pink with a red tutu, it doesn't matter. If you're good at your job, play it as a team player, you're absolutely welcome here, no matter what.
All right, thanks for that. Claire, there's a very specific question that I think might be relevant for you, and it's a debate that I've also seen quite active on LinkedIn and other social media channels. Do you advertise salaries when you're posting about jobs, and what are your thoughts around this whole transparency debate?
So the short answer is no, we don't. I can explain why. And when I first came into the legal sector, I couldn't believe that salary ranges weren't advertised, because I'd come from a retail background where there was salary ranges, it was completely open, completely transparent, everybody knew what they were working towards. But I think I very quickly realised that the legal sector is very different, and because so many people are in specialist roles, it's very difficult to get market rates. So I work with North East law firms and we swap market rate information and all of that, but there is only so much that you can do with that. And I think it's about, because particularly in the Northeast, the legal sector is so small, everybody knows each other and people quite often move around firms. And actually it's about making sure you get the right people with the right skill set and make sure that you pay them the right salary for what they're going to bring to the role. Because we are an SME, like everybody on this call, you tend to find you have one person who does a particular job. We don't have a lot of people doing the same jobs. So it's about people, it's about paying people their worth and their value. But even now, I do struggle with it a little bit because it's not the environment that I've grown up in, but obviously the legal sector is different and it's much harder to recruit lawyers with the skills that you're looking for than it is recruiting a sales assistant or somebody within a role like that. So it was much easier to have that transparency there. But I would love it. My magic wand would have complete transparency around it. But I haven't come up with the perfect solution around that, if I'm honest with you, in the 8 years that I've worked in the legal sector.
Right. Could I pose the same to you, Nicolas? Because also obviously coming from a very HR specific background, what are your thoughts on salary advertisements? And
yeah, I mean, we don't advertise salaries, but we do heavily use recruitment agents who do. And a lot of the reason that we don't, being quite honest, is a little bit about what we've just been talking about in the background. Is we work very closely with recruitment agents to really impress upon them our culture, and we have them in regularly talking to them about who we are, what we do, why we do it, who our clients are, so that they can really understand who we are. And then what we do tend to say to agents is, if you come across somebody that is a napkins person, we just want to see them. So, you know, it doesn't matter about salary. Let us know what salary expectation is, but we want to see who fits the bill. And when I say fits the bill, we've spent a long time looking and thinking about what is a napkins person. And essentially what we've boiled it back to is someone that you'd like to go for a coffee with, someone that you can have a conversation with, and that's got a personality. And so when we kind of put that across to the agents, what we quite often get now is them ringing us up saying, I've got this person, they're really interested in everything that you've been on with, they've been seeing what you've been doing online, would you be interested in a conversation? To which the answer is always yes. So what we don't want to do is limit ourselves to talent by saying we'd only look at someone from this bracket to this bracket. We more go out and say, look, this is the sort of role that we're looking for, and then let's see who's out there and see what return we would get by employing them.
Right. Thank you for that. There's about time for roughly one last question. I'm going to bring up something that came up earlier in our conversation, Sarah, about the fact that the one of the structural issues that SME law firms face is the lack of upward mobility, at least the perceived upward mobility within law firms, and that is on the fee earning side, but also at the back end and the management side. How is that something that you obviously talked about creating roles where people feel fulfilled, but is that a structural issue that you see the SME sector overcoming when it comes to competing with large law?
Yeah, I definitely think there's probably two strands to it. The first strand is making sure that you have more levels or more sort of opportunity to be able to have that recognition and have that status within your law firm. But I also think the other side of it is we've instilled, it's been really hard work, but we've instilled a culture where every single person is equal, really. You all just play a different role. So yes, you might play the role as a director, or you might play the role as a receptionist, or a business support administrator, but you're all treated the same. You're all rewarded in a sort of similar fashion. You're all given the same opportunities. There isn't a them and us culture, which does tend to exist within the legal profession. You have sort of fee earners who tend to be put on a pedestal, and when you're trying to attract new talent, you've got to try and sort of filter out, is the person coming here because they're not a team player, because they want to be, to have the status, they want to be able to, command control over, a team of people, and having authority and command over a team of people is more important than salary and other things, because if you throw in a job title, then they're satisfied. You have to start to question, are they the type of people you want to attract? So if you probably spoke to any member at Eaton Evans Morris, they will feel, no matter, even if it's head of residential property and it is a more junior member, business support administrator, they would be absolutely comfortable sitting, having a coffee together, as Nicola alluded to, but in the same way, they would be very, very comfortable to work together as a team, as equals, who just simply have different tasks on that team. So that's what we've tried to create, to try to make sure that people can have that recognition for being technically good, or managing a project or a team. And we also do an awful lot for, rather than it being sort of the 3 directors and, you know, all the profile is on the 3 directors, you know, any articles that are written, someone else might have written it, but it gets published in the name of the director. We don't do any of that. If somebody's done something really good, then it gets, you know, no matter who they are, it's, you know, it's profiled, it's launched, it's, you know, there's a huge amount of praise that goes into it. But also we have a lot of people running projects. So we're participating in a land registry and an identification pilot, but it's not the directors who are getting the profile. It's, you know, heads of departments or, you know, technical specialists who are involved in it. So again, they're getting that fulfillment, that recognition that they're doing something special.
Right. We have a minute left. If I could just pose this to you, Tim, because obviously there is this lack of perceived upward mobility, but that doesn't mean that there's no opportunities for learning and development in an SME firm, does it?
No. I mean, you know, it's if you're in a smaller firm, it can be much easier for you in some ways because you're there and automatically recognised and you're around and everyone will know you. I think it's important that you make it clear that in your firm, it's not like being in an F1 race around Monaco where nobody can overtake. If people have got the ambition and they show those qualities and they want to go forward, then there will always be room for them. But you've got to make sure that you have full engagement with them and you've got full progression reviews in place, and you know that you follow through what you're going to do. There's nothing worse than making promises to people and not keeping them, because as soon as you do that, you've lost them forever.
That's a nice, profound note to end on. I'm afraid that's all we have time for today, but thank you very much, everyone who joined this webcast. A big thank you to our panel, Bishu, Nicolas, Tim, Claire, and Sarah. It's been very nice indeed. This session was recorded, so you will be able to find the full LPM Access Legal Tiger Team episode 2 online and episode 1. More to come. Thank you very much for joining us, and I hope everyone has a very nice day.